In these times of uncertainty and blatant lies being spread left, right, and centre, and I'm not just talking about the government here, the Irish state is very keen on being the source of our truth, the arbiters of truth, if you will. There's been some very odd statements being made this week by the so-called communications minister, backed up by his posse, where they are showing great concern that lies are being spread to the public and they're being negatively affected by it. And I have a very special guest joining me this morning, all the way from West Belfast. I'm happy to be joined by Gerry Adams. Gerry, how are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Cara.
Good morning to you.
I just have a question to ask you before we start, Rick.
Go ahead, Gerry.
Will you be attending the party?
The party?
Yeah, we have all.
Well, I don't know which party you refer to, but the first party that sprang to my mind, just instant reaction, was the Simon Harris removal party, resignation party. Or is this a political party you're talking about?
You're nearly right. We have all been invited to attend the Simon Harris pity party.
For real? I didn't know that. John said before.
Yeah.
Sorry,
pity
Gerry
party,
said.
Yeah.
Gerry
we have
said
all been invited to attend the Simon Harris pity party.
Well, now you'll testify to this. I didn't know what question. You told me you're going to ask me a question. I had no idea what you were going to ask me about. But strangely enough, Simon Harris factored into it. I wanted to see his resignation party, but yes, he seems to be craving sympathy and pity at this moment. Possibly one of the most detested men in Ireland. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I saw a limp lettuce in Aldi yesterday that would make a better politician than Simon Harris is.
He's not very well thought of.
I'd say he's the weakest. Well, I'd say himself and our Taoiseach have the combined testosterone of a limp lettuce, but that's another story. No, you see, Simon Harris and the majority of our politicians, of our elected politicians, they believe that having values and principles will not get you elected, so they don't have any. Micheál Martin gets up every morning, he puts a little flag out the window, not an Irish flag, of course, a Palestinian flag or rainbow flag, and whichever way the wind is blowing that flag, that's the way he goes for the day. Soulless, empty vessels. And that's why we're in the mess that we're in here in this country at the moment. And just in relation to the threats that have been made against our Taoiseach and other politicians, Irish people, many Irish people are so frustrated and annoyed by the way our country is being destroyed by our traitorous politicians that some of them have resorted to sending threats to some of these useless, worthless politicians. And we can't condone that, of course.
No.
But I would advise these people, do not be sending social media threats, messages to these politicians, because all you're doing is garnering them sympathy. And we don't want these quislings, these traitors, to get sympathy from the Irish people. These people are traitors, and please stop emboldening them and garnering them sympathy.
Yeah. The thing about it is, too, these threats against Harris seem to manifest themselves just as his already low popularity is tanking to ever lower levels. And if you believe opinion polls, which I always take with any kind of a pinch of salt, irrespective of where they're coming from, it's very hard to get a pure and unbiased opinion poll these days. But Harris's already low popularity ratings with the Irish electorate apparently plummeted even further over the last 1 to 2 weeks as well. And he gets the violins out and he's talking about being under threat. You know, without going into any further detail on that, I agree with what you say. Do not make threats to politicians. It only fuels the fire. Keep it legal, keep it above board. And if we do what's right in time, and enough of us do it, their house of cards will most certainly fall. I have a little video clip here I want to play with you as well. I want to look at this morning, by the way. This is not Gerry Adams, because some people are a little bit gullible, John, and they might think, is he really got Gerry Adams on a minute?
But it's not. I used to be serenaded. Yeah, I used to be serenaded. You know, at the matches, the the GAA matches, football matches below in St. Tiernock's Park in Clonus, I was regularly serenaded with chants of Jerry, Jerry around Fermanagh Street. And it was very, very humorous. I actually met him.
Yes.
I met him in Dáil Éireann a few years ago. He's not very tall.
But like myself then, is he a midget?
No. He's about what? He wouldn't be. He's not overly tall, but no. We had a very pleasant meeting, and a very, very pleasant individual. He was actually very. Do you know there was a priest called Father Des Wilson? He died a few years ago. Lord have mercy on him. He was a cousin of mine, but he actually married Jerry Adams and his wife in the sacristy of the Catholic Church in Ballymurphy many years ago.
A little bit of trivia for anyone listening in, and it's just that as your beard, you've started to grow this beard out. It is uncanny. The resemblance is uncanny. The first time I ever met you, actually did say you look a little bit like Jerry Adams, and then you told me that story. But now that I think you're actually, I don't know if you're cultivating this look or not, or you're going to be a stunt double maybe for him, or I don't know if anything happens, they're going to slot you in there. But either way, joking aside, this is John Wilson. He's from Cavan. He's an ex-Garda and a regular on this show here. We just talk about stuff that's going on, and he gives his very valued opinion and his wise take on things. So we're going to talk about some of the electoral shenanigans that may well be undertaken coming up to the presidential election that's going to be held in October. I thought it was November, but it's actually October that it's going to be held. And one of these is involving said Simon Harris, a little clip with him and his posse, where he has again gathered a lot of flack this week by steering his ministers and his councillors not to even consider nominating anyone outside of his party, Fine Gael or Fine Gael, as he likes to call them. So let's hear from the little runt, the little T-boy, and we can get your take on what he says.
We heard reports in the media recently that you have...
Wrong one. Hang on a wee minute. That's statistics. We're going to maybe get into some statistics here as well. But before we do, let's get into this video.
Fine Gael councillors not to nominate. Taoiseach, we heard reports in the media recently that you have ordered Fine Gael councillors not to nominate independent candidates who want to put themselves forward for presidential election, and obviously that would significantly hinder the odds of any such candidates getting on the ballot. What would you say to people who would criticise that on the basis that it's anti-democratic or depriving the public of...
I'd say show me the line in the Constitution that says Fine Gael must nominate its political opponents. I mean, this is
talking about the Constitution. What's he talking about that for? What does he know about the Irish Constitution?
The Constitution can be changed. The Constitution was designed in such a way that the presidency was going to belong to our political class forever. It was never going to, the ordinary man or woman were never going to have an opportunity to contest a presidential election. He's been very disingenuous there, because the Constitution can be changed. I mean, all it necessitates to change the Constitution is the referendum of the Irish people. He's wearing a red tie, which is appropriate, because that's the way all dictators, the Chinese, red is their symbol as well. The Russians, the Communist Party, the flag is red. That's no mistake. That's not by accident. There's a very, very good reason why they are restricting the candidates in the upcoming presidential election just to the chosen few. It's because the government, they feared that the presidential election was going to be used to give them a black eye. It was going to be used to register a protest vote against them, and that somebody, if Conor McGregor had got through, I'm just using him as one example, if Conor McGregor had managed to get a nomination, he never had a chance, regardless. 90% of the Irish public might have wanted him or somebody else to contest the presidential election or to be the next president of Ireland. He was never going to get a nomination. Only candidates that have been pre-approved by our political establishment can contest a presidential election in Ireland. Now, since 1990, we've had an array of different people that were allowed by our political establishment to contest presidential elections. Now, that gave the myth that the system to elect an Irish president is democratic. It is not. But the reality is, our Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, they feared that the upcoming presidential election was going to be used to register a protest vote, a very high protest vote. And that's the reason that they're going to limit the candidates to a few hand-picked so-called safe candidates. It's like when a vacancy arises in the Chinese Communist Party Politburo, and they pick out 3 candidates and the members can vote for you, or you. That's basically it. Hand-picked, chosen people. This is not democracy. This is totalitarianism. He's talking bullshit about the Constitution. The Constitution is meant to be a living breathing document.
An organic document.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ireland was a pro-life country until they decided to introduce the killing of the unborn, and then they held a referendum, and now we have a liberal abortion regime in Ireland. People seem to forget that that there's a 12-week limit on abortions in Ireland. People are forgetting the so-called protection of life during pregnancy bill. That there's no time limit in that piece in that legislation. Listen, Harris he is one of the weakest politicians that we've been cursed with since the foundation of our great country. Pearson, Connolly, and the rest of our great patriots are spinning in their graves, seeing someone like that individual reaching high office in Ireland. He's now he's now considering his political future. This is all part of the pity party program. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'll tell you, I didn't hear Simon speaking out when Sean Wynne was being abused below in Drumshambo for accepting the booking to hold the Michiera Festival in the Mayflower Centre. I didn't hear Simon Harris et al. Coming out to support the elderly lady who owns the Ivy House Hotel in Castlebar, who was subjected to vile abuse in the week leading up to the holding of the Michiera Festival. This is all about poor me. Again, I must reiterate, I do not condone issuing death threats to anybody, but I would say that many of these threats have emanated from the serious frustration that people have about the destruction of our country and the fact that Ireland is being invaded and that our politicians are incentivizing the invaders to invade Ireland. But just a little warning to these people. If you are convicted of sending threats to Simon Harris, you will be going to prison for a long time. Yeah. And you might even be fast-tracked to the Special Criminal Court.
Yeah.
Don't do it. So you have been warned. Yeah. I know these threats, most of these threats. I'm not saying that there are not one or two people that actually genuinely mean the threats that are sending to Harris and to other politicians. But I mean, most of these threats have emanated from frustration, pure frustration. Yeah. People are so annoyed. People are grieving. Many people are grieving for this country, and they take out the frustration. They manifest this grief by sending threats to Harris et al.
And then with social media as well, anybody can send their thoughts. Anybody can dump their thoughts these days onto a platform, and before you know it, it literally goes around the world. And there's a lot of people, I think, put messages up when their heads are messed up, when they're on the influence of something as well. So when you mix all that together too, plus frustration, anger, and being maybe mentally unhinged, it's a recipe for disaster in some cases.
Well, I'm not saying that everybody's mentally unhinged or sending the threats. I mean, a lot of it is just it's born out of frustration and annoyance. And as you rightly said, years ago, people used to shout at the television or howl at the moon, but now they have their mobile device, at hand, and they just kind of send out their, in an instant, in the moment, they send out these stupid threats that are mostly meaningless. I'm not saying that there are not one or two that may be kind of serious have serious intent. But listen, Harris et al., he's not on his own. Unfortunately, the majority of our politicians are working against the best interests of the Irish people. We are no longer a sovereign country, and after the 12th of June next year, when the EU Migration Pact takes full effect, our sovereignty will be totally gone. We are not a sovereign country. We are an economic zone. And the EU Migration Pact is a death warrant for the Irish race, and every Irish politician that voted for the EU Migration Pact is an enemy of the Irish people.
Well, there's a motley crew of them standing there. I paused that one just as he was talking about the Constitution. And noticeably, there's another clip that I'm going to play after this one. And McEntee is standing to Harris right there. Helen McEntee with the pinky coloured jacket. Interestingly, she seems to have been silenced. She's been wheeled out for a few photo opportunities over the last few days. But strangely, she has been said she doesn't speak at all during this clip. There's another clip that lasts for a few minutes with the information minister. She doesn't say a word. She's just standing there, staring blankly at the camera as well, which is interesting too. But let's continue to hear what Harris is, because he mentions the upcoming presidential election that you referenced, and the fact that the diktat was sent out by him that no one from Fine Gael, his party, should be nominating anyone outside of the party. So listen to his snide response to this one, John.
Balderdash, Ben, and it's the latest attempt at disinformation and misinformation, which I see Elon Musk joined in today. Sure, why not? Backing a man who has been found civilly liable for rape in our courts. That's the sort of man he believes should be president of Ireland. Well, thank God he might have a say in who's president of the United States of America, but he's no say in terms of who the president of Ireland is.
What an odious little runt he is. Now, he's talking about Elon Musk getting in behind Conor McGregor in his presidential bid. He's talking about a man that's been found civilly liable for sexual offences, and he's standing there all smug as if butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. What a hypocrite he is.
Go ahead, Simon, make my tea. That's more appropriate than saying, go ahead, make my day. I mean, he was going through his Dirty Harry phase the last time he spoke, but now he's resorted back to type.
Listen, does he not have indirectly, some are saying, the blood of a dead child on his hands in the case of that young lad, Harvey, who he made pledges and promises 2 years ago. The child is now dead. And even post-mortem, he's said that he would meet up with the child's parents, and to my knowledge, over a month later, that has still to happen. And he even went as far as to say, it's up to them. It's up to them to organize this. I've left it with him. They can organize it with me. How are they supposed to organize it with him? Should he not be saying, okay, listen, I'm free on this date. Can you make your way here? I'll come and see you there. Imagine kicking the ball back into the dead parents' court again.
Get with the program, Rick. Lessons will be learned. You not know that. I mean, the story of poor Harvey, that sold last week. Lessons will be learned. Like going forward, this won't happen again. Lessons will be learned. This man should resign. If he had any kind of dignity about him, he would resign, right? And my clear message to our current Tánaiste is resign now, go, and don't let the door hit you on the arse on the way out. You will not be missed. You are a political pygmy. You are about as significant as a fly on the rear end of an elephant in political terms. You are one of the weakest political leaders that Ireland has been cursed with since the foundation of our great state. And this is the man now, along with the other, with our Taoiseach, who is cheerleading the destruction of Ireland. These people are cheerleading the destruction of the Irish race. Irish people, as I've said many times, are just 0.06% of the population of the world. And these vile politicians are cheerleading the destruction of our great race.
They are. And I tell you what, I have my own personal opinion on it is, I think Harris gets some perverse pleasure from what he's doing. I do think he's a very, very wicked and evil man. That's just my personal opinion. I do think he derives some kind of perverse kick out of being hated and loathed. And he's saying, almost in his ivory tower, well, what are you going to do about it? You can talk all you want. You can tell me to resign all I want. I'm going nowhere. I'm too well rooted in my position at the minute. But pride comes before a fall, as they say, and let's hope and believe that the fall of
elections, Rick, elections, whether we like it or don't like it, elections have consequences. On the 29th of November 2024, the people of Ireland, those that turned out to vote, the people of Ireland voted voted these politicians back into power. And I've heard some people talking about, oh, elections were fixed. They were not bloody fixed. The people of this country went out and they voted back in this current government. They voted back in the same politicians into our parliament.
Interestingly, John, you mentioned that, but these pair in the middle of the screen here, for those outside of Ireland that don't know who they are, the guy in the red tie is An Taoiseach, the deputy leader, Simon Harrison. Beside him is Helen McEntee, former Minister for Justice, current Minister for Education, I believe. But am I right in saying that, unbelievably, and that's why a lot of people were saying, surely the blazes, this must be an absolute fix, because this pair, who done untold amount of damage over the last 5 years, allegedly increased their vote share in their respective constituencies. At the last election, people were hoping to see them kicked out, but in fact, they increased their vote share.
Unfortunately, suicidal empathy is a contagious condition in Ireland. Many people just have no interest. In the recent past, since I spoke to you last, I met two fathers. One is quintessentially a middle class person. He's a quintessential middle class man. He has a grown up. Well, his family are in college. He's an acquaintance, and I hadn't seen him for over 10 years, and we were just discussing world events. And he regards the protesters as being, what did he say again? Wasters and scroungers. He doesn't know who Rick Munn is. He doesn't know who Philip Dwyer is. He doesn't know who Niall McConnell is. Malachy Steenson, he never heard of him, the councillor in the East Wall in Dublin. He has heard of Gavin Pepper, but he kind of said, oh, I heard something about the far right was mentioned, and that's all he knows, whatever, about Gavin Pepper. Quite comfortable, goes on the annual summer holiday, goes skiing an odd time. He lives in a lovely leafy area with his family. He's not concerned about what's happened to our country. He thinks everything is great, fantastic. I met another man in his 60s whose son is about to head off with his girlfriend to live in Australia or some other, I think it's Australia, they're heading off. He's been working, the father wanted him to take over the farm, and the young fellow wanted to be a farmer all his life. And he did his leaving cert about 5 years ago or so. Although he's academically very bright, he didn't go on to college. He wanted to work on the farm. And a few months ago, after working on the farm, he managed the farm for the father. The father was in his 60s, and he kind of took a step back for a while there. And he left the running of the farm to the son. The son called him in, had a chat with him, called him into the sitting room a few months ago and said, "Daddy, I'm leaving. I'm leaving Ireland. I can't manage here. There's no future for me here." And he's heading away soon to earn his living abroad. And the father broke down and he cried. He said, "I'm broke." He said, "I'm broken." And that's the two Irelands.
You see, that's what a horrible contrast, where you have one blob of people sitting insulated in a bubble, surrounded by leafy trees and cotton wool, protected from the dangerous mythical far right, being fed their government propaganda. And at this time, John, they're doing all right. At this time, they're doing all right. Then you have the other side of the coin, the flip side of the coin, where many, many men and women are losing businesses. They're losing family. They're losing loved ones through lack of health care. They're seeing their children leaving the country and leaving them, not because they're looking out and they're seeing a big world out there that looks so beautiful and attractive. They're more looking at their own doorstep and saying, realistically, I'm 21, I'm 22 years of age. I'll realistically never buy a house. I'll be lucky to get any kind of a long-term job here. I don't want to go, but I have to go. And what you're talking about, this is becoming more and more frequent, dare I say it, to the point where the people that think they're, completely safe and that their foundations are on a rock, they could be in for the surprise of the day also in the not too distant future.
And the sad reality is that this young man and his girlfriend will meet their replacements at Dublin Airport.
Mm-hmm.
And the father told me that himself and the wife, now that we spoke about the wooden houses or the wooden cabins there some time ago. Mm-hmm. Himself and the wife said that a couple of other children, they've left home, but the plan was that this young fella would take over the farm and he'd run the farm, and he loved it and he loves it. He loves farming. But he got to the end of his tether. He couldn't carry on. The young lad, he's in his mid-20s, I think it is, or he's I think 23. He did leave cert 5 years ago, so he's in his early 20s, and it hit this poor man like a rock.
A ton of bricks.
It hit him like a ton of bricks, and he told me that he's broken, and he was crying. He said I'm a broken man.
And where does he go? Where does that man go? Where does that man go for assurance? Where does that man look to for assistance? And how much salt is rubbed in that man's wounds? You obviously know this guy. I don't. I'm just asking the question. Yeah. How much salt is rubbed in his wounds when he maybe has a look around him and he does see his children leaving because of a lack of a future? Well, as you say, in Dublin Airport or through bus terminals in Belfast, people flooding down into Dublin legally, illegally, taking up jobs, getting houses, getting a village or a community built for them somewhere like Clonmel at a cost of €450,000 per unit for Ukrainian refugees, for example. Is that not salt in the wounds?
Yeah, I don't know this man at all. This man approached me. This man approached me. And
but you had a contact with him. You had a
no. He'd seen me. I think he saw me on this podcast. I think he saw me on Philip Dwyer's podcast. But he just said, he says he's in his mid-60s, and he believes that he's never going to see his son back home again. That he believes that he's going to die and his son will be overseas. That he won't. That is. All his plans are gone. All the plans that had made together are shattered. And this young fella, all he wanted to do was be a farmer. That's all. But he has realised that there's no future here for him and for his girlfriend, and that they have to leave. And that's where we are. We have a government that are incentivizing the world. They're incentivizing the third world to come to Ireland. Mm-hmm. They don't care. I mean, the Irish people don't matter. I see Ukrainian registered cars driving around Cavan all of the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, and nobody cares about it. If I go up to Northern Ireland and buy a Northern Ireland car and drive it in here with a Northern Ireland registration plate, it'll be taken off me within 24 hours. Mm-hmm. Okay, nobody cares. Irish people are way down the list of priorities now at the moment. Our government are prioritizing the invaders over our own native people. Mm-hmm. And I'm not exaggerating.
And that's is that not the salt in the wounds? Is that not more salt in the wounds?
I spoke to a community welfare officer recently. And this person told me that it's absolutely disgraceful that they've been instructed that whatever these individuals want, these outsiders want, they're to get it. No questions asked. They are frightened to death of being labelled racist by challenging these people. They are frightened to death of being labelled. Well, sorry, when I say them, I'm talking about their supervisors and their managers are frightened to death of being labelled racist. So they have instructed their staff to facilitate these people with whatever they want. All the requests are to be met. We are being invaded. There are no genuine asylum seekers in Ireland. Every person who travelled through safe countries to get to Ireland to claim asylum are bogus asylum seekers. Our government, they don't even know what the definition of an asylum seeker is. What we are losing, and I've said it loads of times, we are losing our country in real time. Ireland is being invaded. Within 100 years, St. Mel's Cathedral in Longford town, it's, I'd say, the most famous cathedral in Ireland, or one of the most famous cathedrals in Ireland, and our own lovely cathedral in Cavan, the Cathedral of Saints Patrick and Phelim, will be mosques. They will be mosques within 100 years. And yet, our government are facilitating, our democratically elected government are facilitating the destruction of Ireland and the destruction of the Irish race. Yeah. That is hard to take. That is galling. It's
nauseating.
It's absolutely heartbreaking to witness what's happening in this country. And yet we are called xenophobes, we're called racists, we're called every word they can think of ending in "ob" and "ist."
And as you've said yourself many a time, I've heard you when you've been given addresses to people that have taken to the streets to protest peacefully, of course, and when you've been on this this little effort of mine many times as well, you say repeatedly, and you know, rewinding back, it's hard to look back and say you got that wrong, you got that wrong. You say we're witnessing the destruction of Ireland in real time.
In real time. We are witnessing the destruction of Ireland in real time. We are losing our country in real time. And it's galling. And it's galling. And I was advised by a very learned man not to be personalized and just to refer to these ministers by their title, not by their names. But it's galling to watch our traitorous politicians destroying our country.
And what they do, they draw ranks as well. You know, this is I love talking to you because we'll start off with a clip and we'll get like 10-15 seconds into it and we'll have already done a breakdown, you know, running up to, you know, half an hour in this, which is great. That's why I like to speak to you, you know, on a fairly regular basis to get your take on things that are happening in real time. So this, if we can sort of pivot back to this clip here, you've heard him talking about Elon Musk. You heard him talking about Conor McGregor, how he has a goal on him. He might have an influence in what happens in America, Musk that is, but he doesn't have any influence in what happens in Ireland. This is them drawing ranks really around this upcoming presidency election that's due to take place next month, I believe. Let's hear what he says about the directive that he issued, that his party should not be encouraging democracy by simply drawing ranks in and, you know, ring fencing their own candidates. Let's hear what he says about that.
It's an utter nonsense, but the Fine Gael party is backing the Fine Gael candidate hold the front page. We have a very clear constitution. You can get nominated with 20 members of your Oireachtas. You can get nominated with 4 local authorities. Let's take Kerry as an example. 6 Fine Gael councillors, 27 non-Fine Gael councillors. Of course there's roots. I see Mary Lou McDonald's comments today. She's saying she's not placing a restriction on what way her councillors vote. Let's see how that actually plays out in reality. I'd be interested to watch that now, how many Sinn Féin councillors actually back other candidates. But also, she did also say in Morning Ireland she's not sure of any of the candidates going before the councils that she believes could be Uachtaráin na hÉireann. It won't come as a surprise to anybody who understands anything about politics that the Fine Gael party is fully united behind the incredible, brilliant Heather Humphreys, who's going to make a super candidate, will make a super president. And also in our nomination process, for those who are interested, not only do our TDs and senators and our MEPs get to submit nominations, so too do our councillors. So as the Cathaoirleach of Kerry County Council, Fine Gael's councillor Michael Foley told you all on radio yesterday, probably to many of your disappointment, this is a decision that was taken in consultation with councillors. Our Director of Elections, Martin Hayden, met with councillors. There were surveys carried out. Our councillors are fully on board behind Heather Humphreys. And if other people want to put themselves forward, there's plenty of councillors who aren't Fine Gael councillors who can nominate them, but Fine Gael councillors are backing Heather Humphreys.
What an odious little toe rag he is. So I saw you recoiling in horror there. Let's rewind that back a little bit. To quote Harris, his party is 100% firmly backing, quote, the brilliant, unquote, Heather Humphreys. Why did you almost lose your breakfast when he said that?
on a personal basis, Heather Humphreys is a very pleasant woman, but in relation to her stateswoman abilities, if she is capable, I mean, if he regards Heather Humphreys as being a stateswoman, really, okay. Listen, I won't say what I was going to say, but I tell you, what I will say is that every Irish man and every Irish woman should have an opportunity to contest every election for elected office in this country. If I want to vote for Conor McGregor, I should have an opportunity to vote for Conor McGregor. If I want to vote for Mickey, Joe or Maureen, I should be entitled to vote for Mickey, Joe or Maureen or whoever I want to vote for. But as I alluded to earlier on, they are shutting, the process has been shut down because they knew there was a massive protest vote coming against the government. And that's why they decided to restrict the number of candidates that would be allowed to contest the upcoming presidential election. And this is not democracy. This is totalitarianism. Now, he rightly mentioned the Constitution. That's what's in the Constitution. But the Constitution was put in place at a time when it was around the time of, let's say, there was a lot happening in Europe, let's say. 1937, our Constitution, the Constitution that we now have, was put in place. It was designed to protect, to ensure that our political establishment would have ownership of the presidency of Ireland. That might have been okay in 1937. It's not okay today. We hear an awful lot today about Ireland being a modern country. This is the criteria for contesting a presidential election in Ireland. It's akin to something from the old Soviet Union. It's not democracy. Okay, we're going to have an election, but we can only vote for candidates that have been pre-approved by our political establishment. Since 1990, it was like many independent candidates were afforded an opportunity to contest presidential elections. But even then, it wasn't totally democratic. But they had to be nominated through the system that exists. They had to be nominated by 4 county councils or by 20 members of the Oireachtas. Every Irish man and every Irish woman should be entitled to contest every elected office in Ireland. And this is disgraceful. They're not even hiding what they're doing here. They are bullying their county councillors into just towing the party line. I think that there was a meeting in Kerry yesterday where prospective candidates were afforded an opportunity to put their cases forward before the local election, before Kerry County Council. And the way the media portrayed that, they made a laugh, they made a joke. They reduced it they reduced that story. They covered that story as some kind of a novelty, because it was treated as a joke. And people had to go cap in hand down before these elected fucking cute hooers, a lot of them, looking for a nomination. It's not right. We're going to have to reform the criteria for contesting a presidential election in Ireland. We're going to have to afford the Irish people. We're going to have to introduce real democracy into this process. But unfortunately, they are clamping down because they're afraid of some outsider coming in, somebody like McGregor or someone like, they don't even want Maria Steen to be nominated because they're afraid she might get elected and she holds the wrong views. That's the reality.
She's a super strong candidate. I had Mark Anthony on with me. I think it was last week. We were focusing in on Maria Steen. She's well educated. She's a barrister. She's a qualified lawyer, architect. She has 5 kids. She homeschools her children. She's fantastic orator as well. And just when you set someone like her, for example, and if you were to set her on a head-to-head with Simon Harris, he would just wilt like the limp lettuce that he is. In fact, she's schooled Micheál Martin when she opposed the two referenda that were carried out last year with removal of family and mother from the Constitution and schooled Micheál Martin. He was humiliated.
And who led the campaign? Who led the government campaign to erase woman and mother from the Irish Constitution? Heather Humphreys.
Mm-hmm. Which they're backing. The brilliant Heather Humphreys that Simon the Lettuce Harris is firmly behind.
Yeah, I think. Listen, it's going to be. We are living in the old saying. We are living in interesting times.
Mm-hmm. We are.
This is
do you not find it odd? Sorry, let me get your thoughts on this. Do you not find it really odd that it should be a given that, for example, if you and I and 10 other people we form a political party and we're in government and there's a presidential election coming up, should it not be a given that we back our own people? Should it not be a given that you get behind your own side? Is it not bizarre that the Taoiseach has to come out and make that statement publicly and then get questioned on that he's directing his party members to stay within the Fine Gael camp? Does that not show possibly that he's had to rein in or he's losing control over the ranks, that he actually has to even make that is it not common sense? Would it not be normal to be loyal to your party?
Of course it's normal to be loyal to your party, but the fact that a county council nominates somebody to contest the presidential election doesn't mean that they have to vote for them.
Mm-hmm.
All it means is that they're giving the Irish people an opportunity to have a choice as to who they want as the president of Ireland. I mean, Michael D. Higgins now, I mean, if you pick up a paper now and read about him, you'd swear he was after coming directly down from heaven. He's been treated as some kind of a deity.
Yeah.
The man is a raving communist. He's a Marxist.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He's a communist. He's a lifelong socialist, and there is no difference between socialism and communism. They are bedfellows. You know what I mean? Listen, but we are heading towards, I don't know, we are heading towards dark times in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And from when the EU-Migration Pact fully kicks in next year, the semblance of sovereignty that we have left will be gone.
Oh man,
but unfortunately, Harris can speak there in the knowledge that a very high percentage of Irish people really don't care. They're just sitting back and they're taking everything that's thrown at them. As long as the government have lots of money to be thrown out, they will be reasonably safe. When the money starts to run out, then we may see real changes in Ireland. But until the money becomes scarce, unfortunately, this traitors regime will continue along the path that it's going along, and the path to the destruction of the Irish people and this great country, Ireland, our Ireland. That's the reality.
Well, on that happy note, we'll call time in this one. But having said all that, we're realistic here. Sometimes I'm accused of being a doom merchant. I'm a pessimist. I'm this, that, and the other. I comment. That's all I do. I give my take on what I see, right? Either in the media when I'm out in public or talking with like-minded individuals and people that don't share my views. When I mix all that together, I give a take on things. And without a shadow of a doubt, you have to be realistic about what's going on here. Being dosed up on hopium and burying your head in the sand and just thinking, oh, everything's going to be all right. At the minute, on the current trajectory, it's not. However, I believe hope should never be lost, because hope by definition is the belief that despite everything around you looking like it's crumbling and despite it looking like it's a done deal, that there will be a collapse, hope is the belief that despite all of that, that things could still turn out for the best. So it's always important to retain an element of hope with your thinking or base it on hope. However, you also have to be realistic. There could be some exceptionally painful times coming that, would overshadow even what we're seeing at the minute. And maybe there will have to be a terrible collapse before things, the deck gets, or the deck is scrubbed and the slate is wiped clean, and people have the scales pulled from their eyes when it comes to this shower of treacherous individuals that are so-called government of Ireland before they come to their senses. Unfortunately, that's history as well.
Yeah, but I mean, our Taoiseach and our Taoiseach and the rest of them, they're members of a cult.
Mm-hmm.
They're members of the globalist cult.
Mm-hmm.
And they are just doing what they're told to do. This is all what's happening in Ireland is not unique to Ireland.
No.
Although the fight back is much greater in many other parts of Europe. Hungary and Poland are leading the charge against the destruction of Europe. But unfortunately, many people in this country have been cowed down. They are cowed down, and they would rather just go along with the flow than to stand up and be counted. And they would just rather go along with the flow than to get out in the streets and protest or demand real change, demand that this treachery stops, demand that the destruction of our country stops.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're in a very bad situation here when, listen, we can talk about people protesting, and it's been fantastic, and we've all felt great going to protests around the country, especially the well-attended protests in Dublin. But little or nothing has changed.
No.
The government have continued along the path of destruction.
Defiantly,
yes. And now they're looking for a mechanism to close down YouTube channels. They are looking for a mechanism to really shut down any meaningful opposition to their traitorous policies. Anybody who is opposing the destruction of our country, anybody who's opposing the invasion of our country,
must be silenced.
Is being targeted by the forces of the state. That's a fact.
It is. But we'll keep that for another. I mean, I had tons of other stuff that I wanted to talk to you about this morning, but we've been going now for nearly an hour, 45, 50 minutes. That's enough for this chunk, and I think this is self-contained in and of itself, in that we had a good look at the upcoming presidential election. We had a look at the position that Harris is taking with his party and what the implications could be if these people continue to stay in power. So I want to pause it for now anyway. We'll maybe do another little session. There was another whole session on Garda recruitment there. The figures on Garda recruitment are mind-blowing at the minute, but we'll maybe keep that one for another time in the not too distant future. That's not going away anywhere. But all I would say is, for anyone listening to this, cut and paste the link to this video if you can. It's easy to do and it's free. You cut and paste the link, drop it into a YouTube or a Facebook group, drop it into whatever groups you're part of, WhatsApp groups. You can do it with a click of a button. Get the word out there. Let people see, and maybe it will shake some of these sleeping people out of their slumber. And maybe it won't, but at least we can say we've tried, John, and we can do no more. They can try. We can lead those horses to water. Sometimes we can drag those horses to water, but we cannot make them drink. But maybe we get a nice pleasant surprise, and one or two of them put their heads down to the water and start lapping away at the water of truth. So, John Wilson, huge thanks to you this morning for taking time out of your day. Always love to talk to you. Always great to hear your viewpoints. That's John Wilson. I'm Rick Munn, and this is No Risk, No Reward Media, over and out.